Hello and welcome. These are horse racing selections for Thursday, the 20th of March. I am flatcapcallum and I'm hoping you are all very, very well. We've arrived. Wednesday evening is the start of this channel week for me. As it was often the case, the week after Cheltenham, particularly the early part, it's very, very slim stuff. Like, it's all very short field sizes, and that is basically how it is most time. Sometimes the the Curragh meeting that was on Sunday, that has been held on Monday, but not this week. So yeah, it's been slim pickings. So I'm arriving with a bet for the first time this week. It is 3 horses, £7, and each way Trixie going down in the channel name. So the plan for this vid is I need to do a review of the last day of Cheltenham and the Saturday bets, because I didn't do the review on the last one, so I've got to do those, which will be pretty brief. And also, with all my millions of various different notepads, I couldn't find the actual notepad I wrote those bets on, so I will be verbally talking that through. Got different notepads for tonight. So I've got to do the review, and then the plan is, with myself a little bit of a list here, to do them the bets for Thursday, which won't take very long because only 3 horses. Well, I say that, it probably will take longer, it's me. And then I was going to do a bit of a full Cheltenham review, my review of my own stuff, and then I'm going to give you the alternative view that won't include the word bloodbath, because every blinking person in the world seems to be using that word. And actually, that is not a fair representation, in my view, of how this Cheltenham was. Yes, you had a 100-1 win of the Triumph Hurdle, but in reality, there were ways to win. I didn't. Absolutely, I did not win. But there was, and I will get to that, because I think some of the stuff I'm going to go through is not the stuff you're hearing people chatting about, and also it flies in the face of some of the things that people might say. So I will get onto my alternative Cheltenham review, and then I'm just going to do a bit of a channel plan, and a bit of a what's happening in the next 5-6 weeks, because there's some interesting stuff coming up thick and fast. So I think that's where I'm at. Right, Friday's review for the last day of Cheltenham. Where did we stand? We needed something special. I didn't get it. We put 36 on, we got about 15 back, and that was all because the saver bet, which went on afterwards, we had a couple of placed horses at 16s. One was backed in, one drifted with a non-runner, so that put a £15 back on the board, but we lost 21, which concluded an absolutely dire Cheltenham for me. So yeah, we'll do a bit of a Cheltenham review, but yeah, it was bad. And then Saturday I put out 4 horses, and nothing really gave us much to cheer about. I think the last horse in the bumper absolutely outran its odds that was put up at 50s, but 5th when you're paying 3 places in the bumper was not close enough, so we got nothing back there. We ended the week minus £100 and something pence, which by channel standards is atrocious. Second worst week for overall cash loss ever since I started January 2022. Not worst in terms of percentages, because we've had lots of weeks where we've sort of bet less and literally got nothing back because we got bits back. But overall, yeah, that's not it's clearly not what I wanted. I went into Cheltenham ahead for the year. I've come out from the Cheltenham down 83 for the channel. I think if you were following the last 6 months, you would be marginally up. I think, certainly channel's marginally up in the last 6 months. If you went full 12-month period, I think it's about even for channel stats. Bear in mind, I didn't do videos for about 6 months. So it's put us a little bit on the back foot, really, to be honest. It's put us on the back foot. It's put me on the back foot for the channel stuff, which is really frustrating. So yeah, overall profit and loss, terrible week for me. So I am on the road to try and see what we can do to chip away, if it's chipping away, or suddenly come out with some sort of zinger out of the clouds. That's the plan. I'll do the bet and then I'll get on to more rambles for you. All right, so the bet. Yeah, Thursday's far more interesting. There wasn't much going on any of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday. I mean, Sunday probably. I went out Saturday night, and I wasn't the guy you wanted to get tips from on Saturday night. I mean, I'd have put a few up for Sunday. It was an interesting meeting at Curra, but yeah, no one would have been a millionaire, so don't worry about that. But yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, nothing. So we found ourselves on these three. I had a good go through probably 9 or 10 races for Thursday, and I'm absolutely sticking to my principles of it's got to hit my star rating system. So therefore, I've got three horses. It's one of those ones where people go, "Oh, can you not just stick a fourth in there and make it a Yankee or a Lucky 15?" If I was doing that, I'd be compromising my belief about the value. So I've got the three, and I say I've got the three. Two of them are particularly risky, but I believe are worth playing. So let's talk you through 337 Cork. Some big field handicaps at Cork. Playing in one of them, Jolie Jewel, 12-1. That horse is absolutely better than its current handicap mark. It's a question about whether when it's going to show it rather than if it's going to show it, I think. This is back up to 2.5 miles. It ran 2 miles last time, which was not optimum, and they took it from the front, and it went off 4-1. It was really short for the race. Went from the front and faded. 2.5 is optimum distance. The ground is on the good side, so should be perfectly fine for the horse. And yeah, it's maiden actually. It was a shock surprise winner, 50-1 maiden winner at Cork, and then it's sort of generally been consistent. I think last time was less so, and then it was a run it was at Goran or something like that where it didn't run so well. But generally speaking, it was ran competitively enough in 2.5 mile races, and I think it's got a bit more to give. So if today's the going day, then grand. But it should be a framer in that kind of a race, albeit there's some unexposed types in it. So Jolie Jewel, 12-1, 337. 412, then the first of our risky, well, I mean, it's not like it's easy, is it? But risky, you know what I mean? Getaway Charlie, very inconsistent profile. 3 miles on good ground looks pretty good for it. But even at that sort of 3 miles and good, it has been inconsistent. But when I've gone through from a price point of view, it's worth swinging a go at 40s on that horse. Got back on it, young Doyle, who is family of the ownership of the horse, and he's done well on it before. Generally speaking, when they've put other jockeys on, it's done less well. It's not like he's run on it really well every time, but I'd say he's actually a positive for be riding the horse. It's just one of those ones though. If you follow the channel a long time, I do follow this particular yard. They do come up with some big prices from now and again, and they tend to run their horses from the back, which is not preferable. I'd rather be on the fronter end, to be honest. So sometimes you look at these things thinking it's done and dusted, and it sort of scrapes into place, and sometimes they don't. But I think it's worth chancing at 40s. I think it's too big a price. I think if it was 20s, I wouldn't play it for the channel, but 40s I would. And then the 505 at Ludlow, it is a 5-runner race, which comes with risks because one non-runner, and this bet suddenly doesn't look so good. Time to dazzle, 66-1. I think it's always worth looking in 5-6 runner races, right? So you don't always get a truly run race from a pace point of view. So those sorts of races can throw up funny results. This horse has got an inconsistent profile, very similar to this one. It has run previously well at Ludlow. They've got the first time cheek pieces on this time, and it's one of 2 of the 5 runners that has looked to be one that would go from the front. So it's not going to necessarily get an uncontested lead. I think the French one, Hom something or other, that's the other one I think is likely to go from the front. And then there's an odds-on favourite which pushes up the value. I think that's probably going to be the one that runs in behind those 2, and then we'll have the other ones at the back. But it's run against one of these before, and on that running it wouldn't be a million miles away. So it needs to have a little bit of improvement, but I do think good ground is actually much better for the horse, despite the fact it has got some previous stuff on jumps on heavy ground. But my read of the profile is I think better ground will be better. So overall, do I think it's a very likely horse to finish in the top two? Not really, but 66 to 1 is way too big relative to its chances of framing. So long term, these sorts of bets will pay over a long period of time. Whether on Thursday the 20th of March this one's good enough to get in the top two, we will find out. So the bet is a 50p each way Trixie, so that's each way doubles and trebles, so that comes up to £4. And for ease, 50p each way singles on the 3, £7. Sky are better for one place on that one, but you'll compromise on the prices elsewhere. In terms of optimising place terms, because you want to get 4 places on this 412 at Cork, 365 Paddy, Unibet, Betfred, Boyle Sports, Betway, BetMGM are your best bookmakers. All right. That is it. Right. Quick sort of review of my Cheltenham. So my Cheltenham obviously was atrocious. I come up with a couple of nice winners. Mertown on the first day, Bob Ollinger on the third day. Both were well backed in from the prices I put up the night before, which really did surprise me on both counts, to be honest. I liked both horses. I just didn't see them moving in the market so significantly because Bob Ollinger had been pretty well untouched for quite some time. But Mertown, to be fair, at points the week before you could have got 25 to 1 on the horse. So it did surprise me. Overall, that's the second year in a row at Cheltenham where with the sort of doing multiple bets, big odds, it's not gone my way at all. And to be honest, in most cases of the selections I put up, wasn't really that close. There's a couple of hard luck stories in there, but overall it wasn't close. So I'm absolutely not going to do that strategy for Cheltenham next year. Not because the strategy is completely wayward, but what I talked about at the beginning of the week and through the week is in the current way I'm doing it, and I started doing this star system the back end of last year, and I was doing star system with exceptions. This year it's been star system only. The only exception was Cheltenham. Now 4 horses ran for me at Cheltenham on the star system. All of those did get beat, but 4 is not a great sample size when actually statistically the rest of stuff I put out this calendar year on the star system has been fine. So it's one of those where there's probably mild regret that I went with the volume that I did, but it has worked for me in the past. I just think going forward, what I'm doing on the channel is it was so out of kilter with where we're at now because the amount of stake going down each day in terms of 30 up to 40 quid, when actually the average day stake is reduced down with the star system. It's sort of given me a bit of a hole to get out of now, which I'm not massively worried about in terms of like other stats of stuff I've been doing. I'm just slightly regretful that, I went for it and it didn't work. And I'm not saying if I went for it every year, it would never work again. I just think the way that I've been doing things, that maybe wasn't the right call to work the strategy. I'd still stand by things like Galway Goodwood Week. I'd still be looking to do that. And I'll be really honest, some of it came from Ascot last year where I put out more selective bets for Ascot and the ones I put out weren't so good. But actually my full book of bets for Ascot last year was actually all right. But from a channel perspective, that wasn't what the return was. And I think it was in the back of my mind that actually, go with a bigger spread of bets because ultimately it will pay off. And now I've been in kind of burnt 2 Cheltenhams in a row. Next year it will be a lot more selective, and I will worry less about if I don't have a bet on one of the days at Cheltenham. I don't have a bet for the channel. I will stick to the higher quality, better graded in terms of what I believe for value. I'm also going to look at some other angles and things. So it may well be next Cheltenham. Currently, this might change, but in my current head for Cheltenham next year, then I think it's likely I might look at the start of the week at putting out a couple of bets for the whole week. So potentially a win multiple bet and an each way multiple bet, and then go through each day by exception. I think that's where that is where my head's at. Whether or not that's what I do when I get there, we'll see. But top tip for you for anyone who wants to take this a little bit more seriously than just chucking your pennies here and there, I've written myself a handover note for next year for Cheltenham. So for some of you this might sound like completely bonkers, and some of you it might make sense. But basically, I've written myself a note to read in about 11 and a half months' time, to write myself notes about things I were thinking, things I thought about, things I know, stats I've recorded for Cheltenham for next year. So when I get to Cheltenham next year, I will read my handover to myself so I can be more informed. And so for big festivals, it's quite helpful to do that kind of stuff if you want to take it a little bit more seriously and kind of ultimately learn from potential mistakes. To do that. So yeah, so I've written myself. I say I've written it. It's all I have written most of it. I'm still doing some more bits that I'm writing to it. But so it's got quite a lot of stuff in it. Some kind of race by race detail in there. So yeah, so it's overall I'm feeling frustrated about Cheltenham because yeah, I was wide of the mark on too much stuff, and that happens. Like, this is a long game. And from a personal betting point of view, Cheltenham didn't cripple me by any stretch of the imagination, because I probably bet less on Cheltenham now than I probably did a few years ago, just because I've moved away from just going really big on some of those weeks, and I think that's why I'm a bit annoyed about the channel, because that's kind of what I did do, which sort of is not in keeping with what I've been doing with the channel, nor what I do myself. All right. There's my sort of self-deprecating ramble for you about that. What I was going to say, yeah, because outside of Cheltenham last week, other than the Saturday bet, which was the 4 horses that all got beaten, all the other bits turned some level of profit that were non-Cheltenham bets. So if we'd just done those all right, we'd actually come out, we'd come out probably about evens last week if we just did non-Cheltenham stuff. I think Chancellor said on the last day he was just going to ignore the Cheltenham bets I put out and did the non-one. He'd have done better out of that. So, right, Cheltenham. Right, yeah, I've got a few views on this. This is a bit of a Cheltenham ramble, mild rant, and I say mild rant. It's more about... Yeah, I mean, I've said this at the beginning of the week, last week. There's loads and loads and loads of places out there, like online, and like things like Racing Post online and Sporting Life, Racing TV. They've got all sorts of podcast previews all over the chip shop, and then there's obviously lots of other folk on YouTube who do similar stuff to me. Some of them sort of in the industry, some of them not, some of them more professional standard than me, some not. And too much of it, not all of it, but too much of it was just constant debate about will the favourite win or not, or will it be one of these 2 horses that win. And what I think that does is it artificially pushes down the price of some of these horses when sort of people in the high profile are talking up a particular favourite or not. So we had 7 odds on horses this year, only 2 of them won, and that's what plays into this narrative about it was a bit of a bloodbath. So 7 odds on horses, 2-1. That doesn't sound very good, does it? Likewise, if I say to you, all 4 of them, the 4 o'clock races, the championship races, so the Champion Hurdle, the Champion Chase, Stayers Hurdle, Gold Cup, all 4 favourites got beaten. So they got beaten, and 2 out of 7, and only 8 out of 28. So 8 out of 28 races was there a double figure price winner. So if you played big prices, you didn't necessarily come off unless you got a couple of those, and if you paid the real shorties, you didn't necessarily come off, and that's why people are talking about it being a bit of a bloodbath. You had some random results that Triumph Hurdle with 100 to 1 never jumped a hurdle before, and its form was on the flat. Some of the recent Triumph Hurdle horses that have been good have actually come from France and have got jumping experience. That wasn't the case this time. It beat the 2 favourites. You had Jimmy DeSoyle coming off a really, really long layoff. You had the calamity of the Champion Hurdle, Constitution Hill and State Man both falling, which meant Golden Ace won. State Man would have won if Golden Ace had stayed on his feet. We'll never know if Constitution would have won or not, or done anything or not. I mean, there's people out there crowing about how they won loads of money because Constitution Hill's a dog, and it's like, the horse fell. the horse fell. Like, who knows what would have happened, right? So I don't know, do I? I haven't got a crystal ball. But, going into the race, it was the best horse on paper. So you'd like to have thought it would have run a decent race, but it fell. So, it wasn't that it fell because it was terrible. You can't really say it ran a bad race until it fell. It just was running its race. Like, it's not really a thing on there. But equally, those sorts of folk also have selective memories about all the other odds-on horses that they said were going to get beat when they didn't. But there you go. So because all these odds-on ones got beat, and then there was a few random results. But actually, what I'm saying is 8 out of 28 horses were double-figure price. And if you take into account 2 of those were Poneros winning the Triumph and Golden Ace winning the Champion Hurdle, then actually there wasn't loads of real shocks. What actually happened was you had a number of high-profile horses in high-profile races making jumping errors. Constitution Hill, State Man, Madgeborough, John Bomb, Ballyburn. So that was unusual that there was that many horses making mistakes on the jumps. And I think you had a few kind of underperformers, if you like. So your Galopin de Champs, did it underperform, or did you just get beaten by a really improving horse? And I know where you're thinking. That was the story. Was Tiupu underperformed? Well, actually, if you look at the bare result, Bob Ollinger was the class horse in the race. That's why I was keen on it. That beat Tiupu. Tiupu was 8 lengths ahead of everything else. So if it wasn't for Bob Ollinger, we'd have been talking about Tiupu winning another second Stayers Hurdle by 8 lengths, and actually what a great horse it is. So it doesn't take much to flick some of these narratives. So when people are talking about all these things, it's a bit kind of lots of strong words when actually reality is not what pans out. Because fair enough, you wouldn't have found Poneros. I know where you're thinking. It was supplemented for the Gold Cup. That's pretty tricky, but. Here's some stats for you, right? So I wrote some of these down. That these are the things that people won't tell you about. So, true fact: if you blind backed every favourite at Cheltenham, and if it was a joint favourite, you split your stake. So if you blind back every single favourite at Cheltenham this year with a 1-point stake, you'd have come out with a 2-point profit. Now, no one's talking about that, but that's the reality of it, right? Because all these odds-on ones got beaten, and if you back the 21 horses that were favourite that weren't odds-on, you'd have had a much better profit than that. Because obviously, of the others, I think we had 9 favourites won, including a joint favourite. So take the odds-on ones out. 7 out of 21 races that didn't have an odds-on favourite were won by a favourite. So 1 in 3, which is about normal. And because some of them are in bigger handicaps, you had a few with sort of better prices, like a Mertown at 13-2. So it does frustrate me when although I had a terrible Cheltenham, and I think a lot of folk did. The folk that did are the ones that backed all of the high profile favourites, let's say. But absolutely, if all you did was blind back favourites, you'd have come out 2 points ahead. So how's that a terrible Cheltenham for people? And that's despite the fact we had some freak results, as you might describe it. Now, also, again, I don't think you'll hear people talking about this. If you went for certain types of betting strategies, so if you went for the betting strategy that says, right, I'm going to look at all of the winners from Cheltenham last year, so 2024's Cheltenham winners, and all you were going to do is back them all to win this year, right? So any horse that won in 2024 Cheltenham, 21 of the 27 winners, because we didn't have a cross-country horse last year, so 21 of the 27 winners in 2024 turned up to Cheltenham again this year. 5 of them won, 4 were second, 4 were third, 2 fell, and only 6 of them elsewhere. So only 6 were kind of poor, if you like. 5 winners out of 21, but because they were 25-1, 15-2, 6-1, 6-4, 4-6, so 25-1 Golden Ace, I know the way you're thinking. People will go, well, they were surprise results. They were winners at Cheltenham Festival last year, albeit in different races. 4 seconds, including 22-1 shot, Stellar Story. 4 thirds, including Captain Guinness at 25-1. So blind backing the 21 favourites, sorry, to the 21 horses that won a race in 2024 Cheltenham, blind backing them in 2025, you'd have more than doubled your money. 21 points on, you'd have got back 45 points. And again, So there are folk that will absolutely view strategies like that. Now, even if you take that stage further, there were 17 horses that finished second in 2024. 3 of them won this year because one of them was 16 to 1 in Jimmy DeSoy, and there was a 3 to 1 and 6 to 4. You would have made a small profit on backing all the horses that were second last year. So if you actually combine that together, back 38 horses this Cheltenham, basically the horses that came first and second in 2024 Cheltenham, you'd have made some nice money. So, if you look at the window, really, if you take away, horses, it's basically horses that were priced between like 4 and 8 to 1. If that's your gig of backing horses, absolutely you could have come out and ignore the odds on favourites and back some of the bigger price favourites in the handicaps, and some of the other horses opposing a favourite like 6, 7, 8 to 1. You could have done all right. So as much as I'm not happy to say, I'm honest in saying I had a terrible Cheltenham. I'm not telling you it's a bananas Cheltenham like everybody else was telling you. There was some odd results. There's always odd results, and because one was 100 to 1, and because of what happened in the Champion Hurdle with the forces falling, if Stateman had stayed on his feet, he'd have won the Champion Hurdle, and he'd have been a 6th winner from the previous year, and you'd have had even more money. Like, you'd be knocking on for like 150% profit. So, yeah, there you go. There's my Cheltenham rambly rant. But yeah, it frustrates me that in the general media out there, people just spend too much time arguing about favourites, and lead people up the garden path. And also, there's this rise of younger folk, and I appreciate. And I'm not saying I'm really old, but I appreciate that there's lots of people doing some good about bringing people into the sport. But what I don't like is this stuff around encouraging people to bet hundreds and hundreds of pounds on horses, because that is the way that people start to develop gambling problems, when they see people who they believe to be role models who are winning talking about, well, I've got $2,000 on this one and $1,000 on this one and 100 on that one. It's so opposite of kind of my belief about how people should help with responsible gambling, and just chucking money here, there and everywhere on favourites and multiplying them all up and whatnot. And then it's all well and good doing that if you're going to be completely honest and have like a spreadsheet and a profit and loss. But that's not what people do. And I just think it's great to encourage younger folk in, but don't encourage younger folk in by being gung-ho and putting down 200, 300, 400, 500 pounds on a horse. When, like, and also by encouraging people, like, doing that on course. Like, that's nuts. Like, you're not going to get any value by backing them on the course. That being said, this Cheltenham was an exception. You back all the favourites blindly and you would have made a tiny profit. That is not what happens in most Cheltenham festivals. So, yeah, there's my rant about everything. If you agree, if you don't agree, if you've got a view, feel free to write your own thoughts in the comments and let me know whether I'm just getting grumpy. And it's, because people will be like, oh, it's sour grapes, you had a bad Cheltenham. I'm... Well done to anyone who had a good Cheltenham. I've explained to you a few strategies about how people could have come out and won at Cheltenham, and I didn't use those strategies, and I'm going to look differently about it. No, I'm not saying I'm not going to go for value ever again. I'm just saying I think the volume, I went too much volume, too big for the channel, is what I'm saying. So, was there something else I was going to say on that? No, I don't think so. I think that was it. So then outlook for the next few weeks. So we've got some interesting stuff coming up. So I think this weekend, like starting Friday, is the Go North Handicap Series final stuff. So most people won't really know what this is, but there's lots of qualifying races through the season, and it culminates on a 3-day thing, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's Friday's Musselburgh, Saturday Kelso, Sunday Carlisle. But you usually get some competitive handicap races on the jumps. So hopefully we can, and not massive field ones, but hopefully like 10, 12, 14 runner type jobs. So we'll see if we can get some interest on that this week. Next weekend we're building up to officially the start of the UK flat season with the Lincolnshire at Doncaster. Then we get into the weekend after, where we've got a 3-day Aintree Festival, and also it's the big meeting in Dubai on, I think it's on the Saturday. I think it's the same day as the Grand National, so that might be a really interesting day. The following week is building up to Scottish Grand National weekend, which is a 3-day meet air. I think it's 3-day meet air. I think it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The week after that, some of you might remember because we weren't on last year, but the year before that, it was the inaugural in 2023, and it will be the next in 2025, would be International Positivity Week. So International Positivity Week is back this year. Some of you won't have a clue what that is. You can Google it and you won't know. But it was a made-up festival that we created for the channel, and it went very, very well in 2023. So International Positivity Week is back. So that's the week after the Scottish Grand National. So it's the week where the Cheltenham April meeting is, and the Newmarket meeting it might be the Craven. Feel free to correct me if I've got that wrong. It might be the Craven meeting at Newmarket. So that comes up in April, and then after that we've got Bank Holiday Monday. I think it's the 21st, Easter Monday, when it's Irish Grand National, and then the week after that we're into Guineas Week and Punchestown Festival. I think that's right. I think that's when we got those. So there's stuff coming thick and fast in terms of interesting stuff. So I will endeavour to do my best to try and navigate. But what I'm absolutely going to do is stick to my guns, stick to the star system. So star system last year, I launched it at the back end of the year, and we were playing with 1, 2, 3 stars. This year, it's just literally, I say the star system, that is I go through all the form and whatever. I then put it through a set of criteria to basically what I call my star system. And if it hits the grade a certain point, that is good enough for a channel bet or not. If it's a channel bet, then you will know I've put more money on it. They are not exclusively the only horses I bet, but it's like you're getting the free premium club, which, to be honest, you lost a lot of money on last week. I do accept that. And then nobody else gets the substandard one, if you like, because I'm not about charging money. I mean, the thing with it is, right, and I think unless you've done this on YouTube or somewhere similar, you can't really properly get your head around the pressure that comes with it. Now, if I was running a paid service, then that would be even more pressure if I was doing it in the transparent way I'm doing it. Now, if I was a bit of a dodgy, I was going to give a name there. If I was a dodgy dealer, I was going to give a name that begins with D, not because I was aiming at someone, just because it was. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. A dodgy dealer. If I was a dodgy dealer, then I'd worry less because I wouldn't have the scruples, would I? I'd just be telling you about how great it is. But I'm not about that. But I wouldn't do YouTube unless I felt like I could offer something, and that's beyond some random chatter that I put out there. I think, so it's frustrating to me when we don't win, but we can't guarantee a win and we can't guarantee a profit, and I will never guarantee that. But last year, because it was a bad year, I really, really want this year to be a good year, because if I have a bad year this year, and that's 2 years in a row, it's not going to fill me with joy, let's be fair, and I'll very likely just go on my merry way, because that's not what I'm not here just to keep putting out stuff and it losing all the time. And particularly, and again, this is one of those things that you won't quite get in. I think the only way other people would understand this, right, is if it's like the same scenario as your friend says to you: if you got a tip for a horse, and every time you give them a tip, your horse loses, but all the other ones that you back win. That's how it is sometimes running on these channels. Like, you put out what you put out, and then there are days you don't do videos, there's days you don't mention things, there's days you have a think about an anti-post thing that you don't do, or there's lots of things where then if I look, I want ultimately the channel profit and loss in terms of ROI, return on investment percentage, to look pretty similar to my own personal one. That's what I want, and that is my aim. And that is not always what happens, and that is really, really frustrating. In an ideal world, I'd love the channel one to be a higher ROI than mine, because it's not like I haven't got I can't bet with a full array of bookies, right? So doing what I do, although it's not necessarily mainstream, as most of you who've been following a long time, you still get your accounts restricted. So having to regenerate accounts it's just a bit of a ball ache. So any one time, I haven't got the full access to bet stuff. So when I'm talking about bet with Sky Bet, I haven't had a Sky Bet account I can use for ages. 365 is great, but I haven't been backing with 365. I mean, when they close you down, they really close. They literally like you take your money out straight away. Otherwise, we're going to call the police. They didn't say that, but it's pretty much like that. Whereas some accounts they can close you down, and then the money can just stay there forever. I think, but I don't think it's there. They can. Why would they force you to take it? It's weird. I don't understand why they force you to get rid of it. But it's it's a bit like getting kicked out of a pub and leaving your coat in there, like chucking your coat after you. Well, they could have had my wallet and taken my 50 quid out of there, but then they didn't. They still chucked me my wallet and they chucked me my coat back out. So it's not like I can go and I can back all of these. And then there's times where I'm absolutely loath. But sometimes like the only way I can get that price on a horse is actually getting in the car and going and put a bet on in a shop. That doesn't bring me any joy. For those of you who spend a lot of time in betting shops, unless you've gone to a betting shop I've never been in, they're not the funnest places to hang out with, are they? They don't smell the best. They don't have the best chatter in there. The people who spend all day in there generally aren't the people that are winning. There's a nice social element to a point. But if someone's in a betting shop all day, every day, then generally they're not actually living much else of life to tell you all the other stuff that other interesting stories. So I would try not to spend much time in a betting shop, to be honest. And I'm sorry if anyone does spend a lot of time in a betting shop and takes offence to that. But what I mean is that the people that can go there and spend 6 hours and they bring their packed lunch in there. I don't mean the people that pop in for half an hour, whatever, different things. All right. I mean, I've gone off on a few things there, haven't I? I think that's it. Where we're at, we're 19th of March as I record this video. We're £83 behind for the calendar year. It's not the end of the world, but clearly no one wanted to lose £100 last week. But still, it could have been worse. It could have been your keyboard festival of 2022 where I got hammered for even more than that. I think that would be very difficult to beat, particularly the way I'm doing things now. But let's not go back there. So £7 on a Thursday. It's not going to be tons for the rest of the week, I shouldn't imagine. But I'd absolutely expect that I'd be putting something out for Friday and Saturday racing and Sunday as well. Sunday there's a couple of meetings at Ireland on. So, all right. That's it. I'm going to go and have some tea, to be honest. I haven't had my tea yet. Right. Hope you're all doing well, and hope your week's gone all right so far, and you've recovered from Cheltenham. It's a tiring experience, even if you don't go. Like I didn't go this year, but I still was knackered. And I will see you on the next video, potentially about 24 hours after. Well, a bit more than 24 hours, probably more like 26, 27 hours after this one. All right. Thank you very much. Bye bye.